All right. Hey everyone, I am joined by Mike Studer. He's a physical therapist that connected with me on LinkedIn pretty recently, and I wanted to have him on the show to tell us a little bit about himself, his journey being a clinician. So Mike, thanks for coming on.
John, thanks so much. I'm glad to be here.
Perfect. So just to kind of start off, I always like to ask this question of, take me back to when you were, whether you were in school or what ultimately led you to want to become a physical therapist. I always like asking that question.
Oh, yeah. John, that's a great question. So I had aspirations of becoming a Major League Baseball player all the way until basically senior year in high school, freshman in college. And once I realized I needed to pivot from being on the field, I wanted to do everything that I could to be associated with the sport. So
Okay.
I thought, okay, I could go into journalism school and become at that time the next Bob Costas, or become a physical therapist, athletic trainer, helping them get back on the field, etc. So I took my pathway through physical therapy, and through that, I realized I have the opportunity to help people learn how to walk again, period, or run 90 feet faster. I'm going with walk again. And so I chose the route of neurologic physical therapy at that point.
Okay. That leads me to kind of my next question. You almost answered it, which was I was reading a little bit about you and your bio and everything, and I saw that you're a consultant or were a consultant to Major League Baseball on the motor
Mhm.
control of hitting and pitching. So kind of walk me through that experience, full
Wow.
circle.
That's gone full circle. So since I went to the realm of neurologic physical therapist and was board certified in 1995 as a neurologic clinical specialist, I've recertified 3 times now. I'll be the longest tenured certified expert as a neuro PT because now my tenure goes through 2035. I have dived into the brain, the entirety of the nervous system, and become essentially a worldwide recognized expert in the nervous system, which then includes how to help people learn new tasks, relearn a task that they've lost, and that also helps with skill development. So then, as a function of that, two different things have led me into physical therapy for Major League Baseball and a couple other sports, competitive diving, and a few other things. One thing is people experience what's known as the yips. Now, you might be familiar with that, John.
Yes.
So,
You don't
golfers
say that
experience
word,
the yips.
right?
Oh, yeah, you never say it, right?
Yeah.
Or players develop the yips in their inability to throw. That is called a functional neurologic disorder, which lives in the realm of neurologic physical therapy. So, therefore, I become an expert now helping people doing what my first passion was, get back to baseball. And
Yeah.
then the other thing is I'm involved with hitting biomechanics and helping people learn how to actually hit with more exit velocity using their bodies better. And it's a long story there, but I actually help companies and directly help teams then through those companies in generating force, using the ground to be able to create bat speed, etc. I've worked extensively with the Cincinnati Reds, and I also have several Major League Baseball clients of mine that I help as well.
Okay, awesome. Now I gotta ask if what sports fan or baseball fan were you growing up? Were you a Reds fan or like what was your team?
So I'm a fan of players. I'm
Okay.
very interesting because I actually don't care to follow teams per se. I
Okay.
have a person, a guy that I like, or a lady that's, WNBA that I think is, they play the sport well, they conduct themselves well, they have, impeccable standards. And if they change teams, I want to follow that person.
Okay.
So Nolan Ryan, Ryan Sandberg, Don Mattingly. I mean, I
Yep.
could go on and on.
Yep.
I know most every sport with a great deal of depth, but I won't bore your listeners with all of that trivia knowledge.
Okay. Now who those are kind of former guys today. Like who's your if you had to pick one player, who's your player that you follow the most?
Well, so it's very interesting you asked that. Let me at least tell you on July 27th, I'll be in Cooperstown, New York, as
Okay.
a member of the National Baseball Hall of Fame Presidential Club, watching my most recent favorite, Ichiro Suzuki, be it,
I love it.
let's just say, inducted into the Hall of
Yeah.
Fame. In
Baseball legend.
today's day and age, I tend to actually like the more power pitchers. So I'm
Hmm.
still a Max Scherzer fan who
Okay.
graduated from the same college I went to, University of Missouri. We
Okay.
missed each other by just a few years when I was trying out for that baseball team. I made 3 cuts on the team and then
Okay.
did not make the team. So Max Scherzer is still right there for me. I like the power pitchers, and I really like switch hitting players of any position. Mookie Betts is not a switch hitter, but he's right up there for me.
Okay.
Shohei Ohtani is as well.
Yeah. Shohei's doing it all. Yeah, that's for
He
sure.
is, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So now kind of the transition into what you've done professionally in your career, kind of outside of sports. I had purchased the book that you had written, The Brain That Chooses Itself. And, I kind of came across your profile and saw this. And, that's not something you see every day, within the PT community, especially in that neurological space. So kind of walk me through like what the process was for writing that book, maybe what inspired it, why you wanted to dive so deep into that niche within the
Wow.
clinical setting. Kind of walk me
Yeah,
through
so
that.
I had been teaching a course that was a 2 or 3 hour version of a course for about the past 3 years that was really all about how to optimize health span. This has always been a fascination of mine, but even more so as I'm past mid 50s now, and I'm still an active triathlete and marathoner. And so I'm looking for ways to be able to pull levers so that I can perform better, live longer. And I always tell my kids I'm going to live till 120 years old. So I want to do what I can about that. So I've been doing this for a while, and this space is just blown up with all of the different people speaking about this. And you could list all the names of Hubermans and Atias and Rhonda Patricks, and you'll go
Yep.
on and on. And it compelled me. I want to amass and assimilate this as much as I can, but there was something that nobody was doing in this space, that they weren't talking about the person and their opportunity to decide for themselves what they felt was healthiest. Because John, we know that there's such thing as the placebo, right? And
Yep.
that's really believing in something that is a sham. It
Hmm.
has no value. But what people don't really understand is there's something also known as the placebo effect. And that is the power that belief has on something that's either a sham or something that has evidence basis. So to me, individuals tend not to make choices because they feel hard. They feel like there's friction. The gym costs money. I don't want to eat that way. Everybody says the Mediterranean diet, but it doesn't taste good to me. Or I want to sleep at this time of night. And people have different choices, and they feel guilty because they feel like they've got to choose the one singular route to take this supplement and eat this way and sleep that way and exercise this way. And as I was collecting all this up, John, it became clear to me that there are many options, many correct ways to live healthier and live longer. And wouldn't it be best and likely more consistently adopted if we gave people practical strategies that they could select and they could put on their plate and consume like a buffet? You go to a wedding and you're at a reception, and they say this is what we're having. Well, that's great if it works for you. Otherwise, you feel like that's not what I wanted, and so you don't eat.
Yep.
But if you get to choose from a buffet and put things on, you're appetized, you're hungry, you're going at, and you're going to put the things on your menu. And so the entirety of the book gives people practical choices that they can use to extend their health span.
I love that because I put it in my LinkedIn bio. I'm a big, fitness and health guy. I've probably get called crazy by my girlfriend and her friends. They're always calling me Grandpa John because I'm very, strict about when I want to get to bed, obviously. I mean, I go
Yeah,
out, I still drink and go to parties and
yeah.
stuff, but for the most part, I take it seriously. But again, there's people that I know that are just as healthy, but they go to bed later and they can wake up. Like there's so many different ways, and I think that sometimes it gets there's almost too much information out there. Like You
Yeah,
know, I love that idea behind, okay, there's not a one size fits all approach,
that's
but kind
right.
of allow yourself to see what works for you. And I'm big on that of like, all right, what works for me not work might not work for someone else. And I feel like
Yeah.
that kind of ties into being a PT as well. You know, your plan of care for one person. I mean, kind of my backstory. I tore my ACL, and that's why I work in this niche. Um, that's why I wanted to work with PTs, clinicians, private practice owners. But the way I rehab my ACL is going to be completely different than someone who's in their 50s and is just trying to get back to, being able to do everyday life, go to the gym, that type of stuff. So I feel like
And
that's
if
probably
your
where you.
therapist who's helping you rehabilitate for anything, back pain, ACL, stroke, or whatever, says, this is my approach, and I take this approach with everybody, and it's the best approach. Well, that's great. Some people's personality, they're going to say, okay, I'm paying my $40 per visit copay, and my insurance is covering the rest of this, and I respect your reputation, and I'm going with it. But 80% of the people say, I don't want to do isometric exercises. I don't think that works very well. Or I don't think you should try to walk me that fast after my stroke. Even though you think the evidence is good, that causes me to feel fearful. And if we're not actually using the individual's opinion, no evidence basis is going to be as successful as it could be when we include and empower the individual that is subject to make the change.
Absolutely. And I love the correlation between, and another reason why I feel like I gravitate towards this community is, financial planning is very similar.
It
There's
is.
not a one size fits all. Everyone's retirement is different. Everyone's goals are different. So we need to, as planners, need to be, able to adapt and adjust to some, there's certain rules that you do follow
Right.
just to have a foundation, but then you need to be able to maneuver within that and adjust it so that the person, I'll always say imperfect action means more than anything, right? Just
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
action is better than the perfect plan because that's just a piece of paper. Same thing applies
That's right.
here. So I love that philosophy that you had. So,
Yeah, if you can imagine, John, you said to every single one of your clients, hi, nice to meet you, and this is your investment portfolio, and I use the same investment portfolio for everyone, you're going to have some disengagement.
oh yeah.
If they don't get the opportunity to say no oil stocks for me, or all green energy for me, or nothing foreign investment for me, doesn't matter what it is. As soon as people can feel like they can personalize a little bit of it, they get some buy-in, they get engagement, they get intensity. And when I make a choice, I'm a little bit more willing to actually take and assume some risk. But if you made the choice for the route that we go for investment, or the route that you and your girlfriend are taking for a long road trip, if you made the choice, she's going to see, oh, look at all the traffic here. We should have taken the other route. It's human nature.
Yep.
We need to buy in to be able to adopt and to be able to tolerate some pluses and minuses and celebrate those victories along the way.
Absolutely. I love that. So my next question for you is, going back, if I had to say, all right, you're going back to school, you're starting fresh, starting over as a PT, kind of a generic question here, but like what would you potentially do differently knowing that what you know now and having been in this space for 30 plus years?
John, I have been very blessed. I have already been in the career for 35 years. There's a couple of different things that I would do differently. Here's an interesting element. I graduated as a PT at 21 years old because I got a bachelor's in PT when it was the only thing you could get.
Yeah.
I went back in 2000. Actually, I take that back. I went back in 1995. And by the time it was 98, I got a master's in physical therapy because that's all you could get at the time.
Yep.
In 2021, when I had sold my companies and I had shifted from 92 hours a week working, literally, down
Yeah.
to 35 working for the company that I sold to, I had space in my life and I went back and got a doctorate.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a couple different things. I could have skipped that master's phase in there. That's one thing. But I'll tell you, with exception of a few small human interactions when, I was an individual living through the pandemic and trying to manage a 51 person operation. or when I was working and helping someone become the best physical therapist they could be. And then they said, "Hey, I want to leave and go open up my own." I made a couple mistakes in my life about trying to hold on to that individual and not let them fledge onto their own. And also in the pandemic, all of us made mistakes about, shutting the whole entity down and etc. With those exceptions, I'm a person that almost lives with no regrets because I take mistakes and I learn from them. And so, therefore, it's an opportunity. If I hadn't made that mistake, I can't learn from that for my next future. So, I
Yeah.
don't really think about the past, about revising what I would have done, just learning better for my best future.
I love that. Yeah. And it's always good, like I always like talking to people that have been in the industry, regardless of what it is, for a very long time because they've made the mistakes. They know what works, what doesn't. You can almost accelerate your learning curve by speaking to those types of people. So I always encourage younger PTs to get out there when they're getting out of school and talk to the people that are running the businesses if they want to get into one.
Yeah.
I know the financial side of things and I know enough to be dangerous, but the most value you're going to get is always going to be from someone that's actually done that in your space, which is exactly what you have done. So this leads into my next question for you, which
All
is
righty.
there's a ton of, there's always like the Debbie Downers out there, and there's a lot of negativity around, the rehabilitation space, whether it's reimbursements going down, insurance versus cash pay, and also just how expensive it is. Like you said, you got your bachelor's in PT. That's not a thing anymore. Even a master's has faded away. Now you have to be a doctor. You have to get a doctorate, and that's a lot of schooling. And you came out at 21. These young clinicians are coming out at 27 years old, 28, with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, unless they were lucky enough to have parents help them out and stuff. But for most people, that's the scenario. And then they're hearing the pay is not keeping up, we
Mhm.
can't pay you as much anymore as an owner. The margins
Right.
are so thin. But with all that said and done, like where do you see the industry? Do you have a positive approach to it? Because I feel like you do. Just almost like advice for people who are younger and either just starting out or getting into it and they're almost second guessing, like, did I make a mistake?
So, John, you wouldn't know this, but I have twin daughters that are both physical therapists.
Okay, well, there you go.
So this is not a hypothetical situation of what
Yeah,
would you say to people coming out now in
well, you
debt,
have
etc.
them.
Yeah, yeah. So my twin daughters are both PTs. They have pension in the realm of neurologic physical therapy, and I'll tell you this: um, for me, people that are willing to be exceptional in their relationships with the people that they are providing care for, their colleagues, or in fact, eventually their employees. If you are willing to be exceptional, there are always opportunities and maybe even better opportunities now than there were 30 years ago. You had people that were graduating 35 years ago who saw physical therapy as their profession and they were ready to nerd out and they really wanted to learn everything they possibly could. Now we have some people graduating and it is their day job. And they also have, an Instagram handle that complements that. But they are living a balanced life and all to them. And I support that entirely. They're working more part time than ever as physical therapists. And now the exceptional individual is truly a smaller percentage than it ever has been. Those individuals that want to go the next level, work, see another patient today, go to another continuing education class, offer the type of concierge service that is not being seen by the big box entities. Now, exceptional is really becoming the exception
Mhm.
rather than the rule. So a lot of us were small physical therapy owners, and you could find a lot of personalized care in a lot of different places. And now there's a lot of large entities and a lot less personalization. Exceptions are becoming the exception.
Yeah, and I think with the drive, obviously private equity is a huge thing now. These massive conglomerates, that's always the talk of the town in the
Yeah,
community. PE, and it's people are not really being prioritized over profits, and that tends to happen in corporate America for better or for worse. I think there's
Yeah,
some
and
good
there's
and
both
some
sides of
bad.
that. Hey, I'm sitting here in Las Vegas with a pool in my backyard only because I sold to private equity. So I'm not
Yeah,
going to be, so I know that this is how it goes. But you have to, if you want to actually get to that point where you're 55 and you have the opportunity to have the luxury to do whatever you want to and innovate, you got to actually start building something that's on your own, for your own, before you can sell the PE or otherwise.
absolutely. So now that will be, my second to last question I'll say for you is, when you started out, you didn't just come out of school, and it could be wrong maybe, but did you come out of school and just start a business right away, or you got
No.
experience and then you felt
Yeah,
like,
that's
yeah. So kind of
That's
walk me through
interesting.
that a
So
little bit.
I had a little hometown story there. So I was born in Des Moines, Iowa,
Okay.
very Midwest person, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm as Midwest as they come. And we moved from Des Moines at 10 years old. I moved to Southwest Missouri, and that was as rural as it could get. We moved to a place that had population 48 on the sign. When we moved there as a family of four, we basically added 10%, 9% to the population. All right, so now I know everybody from seventh grade all the way through senior when I'm a senior in high school. I get the opportunity to become valedictorian. So I go to the one place that gives you, a free full ride for all the valedictorians in the state. So I go to the University of Missouri. So what do I do when I finish PT school at the University of Missouri? I go back to Iowa because I want to be back in Des Moines. I sign on with Iowa Methodist Medical Center, Yonker Rehab in Des Moines. I worked there for 3 years until somebody comes out to visit her uncle, witnesses what I'm doing with her uncle. She travels from Oregon and says, I want you to come work at our rehab center. I'm the director of rehab in Salem, Oregon, and I love what you're doing. It's a really long and beautiful story, but I'll spare you that. I follow her. We moved, my wife and I, no kids at the time, out to Salem, Oregon. I work for Salem Hospital, one horse town, one hospital entity for 11 years. I develop a reputation, never thinking to myself, I'm going to leverage this reputation. I do the grind, the work. I provide exceptional care. For 11 years straight, people know me in town. So now, John, it's time to answer your question. When I step out, only at the insistence of my wife, Mike, you can do this. You can actually open your own. Now I have a reputation to build off of, and people are referring people to me in droves because I've earned it, not because I've got a sexy Instagram page, which we didn't have in
Yeah.
2004, obviously, not because my Facebook was blown up, not because I was taking billboards, because the reputation was there and I had a foundation, and then I just built off of that foundation. I thought, well, I've rented this, 1,200 square foot place. Now maybe I could take on another therapist. I didn't think 5 years later I'd build a new building and triple that size. And then 5 years after that, I would build another building and double that size. And then 5 years after that, I would build another building. And actually, that would be as big as both of the other two buildings combined. So I think work ethic, taking the long game, playing the long game, and always treating people with that quality experience. Those are really the things. But you don't come out thinking you're just going to do it and break the bank and beat everybody down. You actually just come out just providing healthcare.
Well, I absolutely love that, and that's a great note to just kind of summarize everything that you told me today. So just to kind of wrap up, for anyone listening, what's the best way to, number one, be able to find your book that you wrote, and then also just find more information about you?
Yeah, it's super easy. So, if you write The Brain That Chooses Itself in an internet search, you're going to find it's available on Amazon. It's available in Kindle and paper book on Amazon. But it just came out yesterday on Audible. I narrate the entire book, and it is now available on Audible as well. It's a 7 hour and 39-minute listen. It is some ear candy for anybody that wants to live healthier and longer. You can also reach out to me directly if you want signed copies, as you did, John, for your family, for your clients and customers that you want to, provide something special. Just email me, Mike at MikeStuder.com. And I'm happy to send books to you directly that way. I sell them cheaper than Amazon does, and then inscribe them and send them off to people.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Mike. And what I'll do is I'll include, your LinkedIn, your website, everything in the comments section below the video. But thank you very much for taking the time today. It was great getting to know you and looking forward to staying connected with you.
My pleasure, and I'm similarly looking forward to staying connected as well.
Perfect. All right.